Hey friend, welcome back. Or if you're new, welcome. I'm Jeff. This is the third part and the final part in a series that I've been making where I've taken an old project, my cardboard clothing, and transformed it into a new idea, my cardboard curtains. But you might be thinking, like, Jeff, why are you making a part 3? What is left to share? And to that, I say, yes, you're totally right. I get that. But I haven't explored how this new work is going to fit into my arts practice. Like, what am I going to do with it moving forward? I don't want them to be sitting in my studio collecting dust, because that just defeats the purpose of this whole project. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I create a plan of attack for incorporating this new work into potential client projects or into new ideas for me to create art for myself. There's a method that I'm going to be sharing with you that I've come up with, and so let's get into it. I don't know if you can relate, but when I have ideas flooding in, I can get pretty overwhelmed. And that's especially if it's coming out of a place where I had no ideas. So going from nothing to idea overload, I can kind of just get really lost and end up just sitting there because I don't know where to go first. After making my cardboard curtains, that's pretty much where I landed. I made the curtains, and then all these ideas started to come in of how I could explore this idea further, and then I wasn't really sure which one I should start with. And this can be something that I feel quite regularly, and that's when I decided to create a strategy to combat this and to create a really calm and clear method for me to navigate my way through this frantic feeling and come out at the other end with some really clear ideas of my next steps moving forward. And the strategy that I use is called my BECC Method, like BECC, BECC. It has 4 steps. There's brainstorm, there's excitement, there's categorize, and there's choose. It's a fun little acrostic poem that helps me remember each stage. And I created this method myself over, it was probably like 12 months ago, I would say. And it's really helped me to make sure that I'm considering the business side of my arts practice all the time, because I work for myself and I have to make sure that I'm making money. Otherwise, I won't be able to pay my bills or survive. And this BECC method has really helped me to create a system to work out which opportunities I really want to pursue further. And so I'm going to use this project as a way to go through the whole method and share with you what I'm going to do with it next. So let's just get started. Step number 1 is brainstorm. And for me, this is unfiltered brainstorm. It's, dump everything on a page. Don't think about anything too hard. Anything that comes up, just write it. Stream of consciousness. I don't like to place any limitations on these ideas either. So, I don't worry about my skill level, what it might cost to do that idea. I just try and think as big as possible and write it all down to get it out of my head. A lot of the times, it's the fact that all of these ideas are in my head that makes me feel so frantic. So once I get them onto a page, it allows me to then look at everything, and then I can start to navigate through it. So I did a brainstorm for this project the other day, and I created a pretty big list, and I'm pretty happy with what I came up with on that list. So for this project, I ended up creating some subcategories because it helped me to make sure I was considering all aspects of my practice, because I like to make things that are like wearable, do illustrations and paintings and drawings. If there was like variations on the different ways I could create this cardboard fabrication, workshops I do, sculptures, that kind of thing. And so creating these like subcategories did help me to make sure that I was thinking about everything. And I also looked over my previous clients as a way to fine-tooth comb it as well. So looking at my website and then going from project to project and going, oh, could this curtain idea be something that could be explored in this project? And then that created some new opportunities and some new ideas to sort of think about. So they're two really great ways to start brainstorming that have really helped me. All right, so on to the next step. Step number 2 is excitement. And so I rank all of these ideas from most exciting to least exciting. And then once I've done that, I then try to pick anywhere from 3 to 5 ideas that I think are the most interesting to explore. And that just depends on how big my list is. Obviously, if it's a really small list, maybe I'll just pick one. But for this one, I ended up picking 4, but some of them kind of cross over. Again, I don't try to put limitations on, what's my skill level at this current point, or like how much would it cost. It's just like, what would be the most exciting thing for me to explore? Because that's going to give me more motivation to want to do it. And it also means that I'm leading with like my creativity rather than any other thing. So for this project, like I said, I picked 4. The first option is that these curtains could be like a large hanging piece as like an installation piece. The type of fabrication could be used to create like a costume or a wearable piece of art. I thought doing a version where there was no paint on the cardboard could be more of like a minimalistic variation on it and could be really fun to do. And then the fourth one is that with that minimalistic variation, I could potentially project something onto it or play with lighting, and it would allow for more like flexibility because I could see it as like a blank canvas really. Once I picked those 4, I then went and asked myself, like, why do I find these ideas exciting? So the kind of things I would ask is this kind of work new, something that I have never done before? Will I be learning a new skill that I can add to my tool belt? Does it connect me closer to what my dream project is, or like aspirations for these big dream projects? Or is it something that I've always wanted to try? By like asking questions like this, it allows me to put some context onto the project and to give some motivation as to like why I want to actually do the work. Because this is all self-driven. There's no one telling me to do this work. For me, if I don't have some kind of motivator or like thing that I'm getting out of it at the end, it usually means I will not want to finish it or even start it. So by having answers to these sorts of questions, it allows me to go, yep, cool. I've always wanted to make some wearable pieces that someone could wear on stage. So if I do this experiment, I might get one step closer to doing that. For the large hanging option as like an installation, I've always wanted to be able to start to get my work into sort of bigger spaces and halls and like decorations for larger events and conferences. So like this would really lend itself to getting me closer to that goal. So all of those little things start to come into play, and I think that can really help any person stay motivated. Oh, and the other thing that I will do is when I'm asking these questions about my excitement is list potential negatives as well. Like one for the large installations that I came up with is that a lot of venues will require fabrics and artworks to have like a fire prevention layer coating thing coated over it, and it's like, is that something that I actually want to put on these curtains or not? So any sort of negatives or like barriers that could come up, I will still put them on that list as well. All right, now we go on to number 3. Step number 3 is categorize. This step really helps me to create more of a healthy balance between creative Jeff and business Jeff, because they're obviously 2 hats that I wear, and I always want to make space to create work where it's just for me, just for creative Jeff, because I enjoy doing it. And I don't want to turn everything into a potential job opportunity, because I really just am afraid that I would fall out of love with my creative practice if everything turned into business. So this step is all about trying to categorize what ideas you think could potentially stay for you. Spam. And what ideas you think could be great opportunities to push forward with client work. So when I looked at my 4 points here, I have 3 that are more client focused because they're all quite similar. So the curtain idea is obviously more of a client focused project, the blank curtain, and then the projection onto the blank curtain. And then there's 1 point that is more for myself, and that is the more wearable piece. And once I worked out that, it even allowed me to, again, condense it down into being like 2 ideas. So it feels like I'm doing even more culling, which feels great. Once I've divided them into these 2 categories, I will then put them into a table like the one that I'm going to put on the screen now. And for each project sort of idea, I will then create a list of possible clients or like collaborators that could be a really good person or group or company to reach out to at the end of when I've got the idea sorted. So for the curtain, you know, it could be like a shopping center, and then I list all the different shopping centers that I would like to pitch to. It could be a festival, and then it's like, what festivals would I like to pitch to? That way I've already started to think about who the work could be created for, and it can help to keep me on track of making sure the work fits to potentially what their brief could be. Then I also make any other notes. You know, it could be, do I think I need a sample of the work to show a client if I'm going to pitch an idea? For me, usually it means yes. I always need a sample or a good photo or something like that. I rarely rely on sketches for a project or to pitch an idea. So I do this for each point, and then that just really helps me to create more of like a finalized idea of like what these projects could look like. It also makes it more clear how ambitious each of these ideas are, and I can usually reorder them into being like, what's the most ambitious one? Maybe it requires me doing a lot more upskilling and like collaborating and like getting software or equipment, versus something that I could create in the studio, but it might just take me a whole bunch more time. Recategorizing them in that way then gives me like a really full picture of like, for all of these ideas, what would be required for me to go on to the next steps. And then I move on to the 4th step. Editing Jeff here. Anything that you see me film in this white room, I filmed it the day after what you're watching right now. So I'm just like putting it back in so it can speed up the video. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and yeah. And so the 4th step is choose. I now have to make a decision on which one or which ones I want to move forward with. And usually I'll put them in a priority order. So then, you know, if one idea falls through or gets a dead end or I lose focus, I can kind of move on to the next one very quickly and organically without having to recalibrate or anything, because I've put all that information down on the page already. So at the end of doing this BECC method, I've resulted in having 5 actions. So the first one is to hang the curtains in like a large space and take some really good shots of them, take some videos, just make some really nice sample documentation of everything. Number 2 is that I'm going to drape the curtain over a body for some sample photos for my wearable idea, and it should start to give me an idea of how it sits like fabric, and if I was going to share those photos with someone, it'll give them an idea of like what the fabrication could look like in some kind of clothing item. The 3rd step is that I'm going to make a really small sample of the blank neutral variation, which I'm going to do this afternoon after I finish recording this, which I'm pretty excited for. I'm probably going to make it just like, 1 by 2 meter square, just like, not as big as a curtain, but like a decent size, so I can hang that, take some photos as well. Then once all of that is done, it's like step number 4 for my wearable idea. I'm going to create a document that I can then pitch to someone to make a garment that is using this technique. I want to collaborate on this project and have someone else create the garment, make the pattern, sew it all together, and I'm just going to do the application of the cardboard. So I want to pitch this idea to someone like that. And the fifth one is for the install idea. I'm going to decide on who I want to reach out to first and create some kind of document from those photos and videos and present this as an idea. Hey, editing Jeff back in the studio, and look, I have it on my wall. It's now up. Everything else is packed away. But I just wanted to really quickly go through, there were some other things that I documented whilst I was in the studio, and I just wanted to share it as well in here. I'm going to do it really quickly. So the first thing is that I played around with some lighting effects on the blank cardboard piece, and that was really exciting. I didn't think it was going to look as cool as it does, and I want to explore that a whole bunch more. I also, when I was laying down the big curtains on the floor, it gave me this feeling of a rug. And so I thought it could be fun to play around with an idea of like a floor covering. I used a UV black light on the curtain as well, and it picked up on some of the neon paints, and that could be like club vibes, like party vibes. It's a really cool lighting effect. I also pulled out the other earlier samples that I probably showed in part 1 and part 2, and just played around with them in terms of like wearables and like what it could look like. I really loved the pink and purple cardboard chain link as like a pair of pants or a skirt. All of these other wearable ideas I'm super excited about, and it's funny that it's actually somewhat surpassing the actual curtains themselves. I'm more excited to make some really fun wearable clothing pieces that could be styled in more of like an everyday way, and doing editorial photo shoots and collaborate with people, and in some way, which I'm not surprised, it's going all the way back to the original cardboard dress, like full circle. So yeah, this is those. Like I said, I'm probably going to do another video where I'm gonna just show more of that process and more of the samples, but I thought I wanted to at least give you a teaser because I've been already showing them in this video. All right, enjoy the rest of it. And that is how I use my BECC method to go from brain all over the place, ideas going everywhere, frantic, to cool, plan of attack. Jeff is peaceful. When I look at these 3 parts to this project, part 1 and part 2, I see as much more of the creative thinking and the creative Jeff side is at play. And then part 3 is like the business side. And it almost feels that coming into this part 3 is like a reset of the project and sort of recalibrates me in some way to then move on to the next step again. And I think always having these moments to reflect and analyze and reset allows me to sort of keep on top of everything. So my BECC method has really been like a game changer when it comes to my creative thinking, play, experimenting, and like generating ideas. And it feels really good to be able to revisit old ideas and give them new life in a new way. So yeah, happy, very, very happy. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this here. Hopefully you enjoyed this part and found this video helpful. Feel free to use it for your own practice. Let me know if you think it's a good idea or if you're going to try it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about anything to do with this project. If you liked the clothes, the curtains, whatever. If you want to, obviously say hello on Instagram as well. I'm there quite regularly talking about anything and everything from Survivor and wrestling and Real Housewives to whatever projects I'm working on at that point. Other than that, I'm going to leave it there and talk to you next time. Bye.